Imagine finding a smartphone buried in King Tut's tomb. Sounds impossible, right? Well, that's basically what happened in 1901 when divers pulled something unbelievable from a Roman shipwreck. They found what looks like the world's first computer, but it was made over 2,000 years ago. Picture this. You're a sponge diver in Greece, swimming down to the ocean floor, when you spot something glinting in the sand. You think it's treasure, but what you've actually discovered will blow the minds of scientists for the next century. This bronze chunk of metal, covered in mysterious gears and dials, wasn't supposed to exist for another 1,500 years according to everything we knew about ancient technology. The ancient Greeks were supposed to be smart, sure, but building computers? That's like finding out your great-great-great-grandmother had a Tesla in her garage. Today, we're diving deep into the most mind-bending archaeological mystery ever found, the Antikythera Mechanism. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll question everything you thought you knew about ancient civilizations. Let's travel back to October 1900. A group of Greek sponge divers are sailing home from North Africa when a massive storm hits. They take shelter near a tiny island called Antikythera, and while they're waiting for the weather to clear, one diver named Elias Stadiatis decides to check if there are any sponges in the area. He puts on his diving suit, picture something that looks like a deep-sea astronaut outfit, and drops down 150 feet to the ocean floor. What he sees down there makes him shoot back up to the surface faster than a rocket. He's babbling about dead people, horses, and an entire city underwater. His captain thinks he's got the bends. You know, when divers come up too fast and their brain gets all wonky from the pressure. But Elias insists he's fine, so the captain goes down to see for himself. And holy moly, Elias was right. There's an entire ancient Roman ship down there, complete with bronze and marble statues scattered across the seafloor. This wasn't just any shipwreck, this was like finding the Titanic, but filled with priceless ancient art instead of rich people's jewelry. The Greek government got involved, and they spent months pulling up statue after statue. Bronze horses, marble gods, jewelry, coins. It was an underwater treasure chest. But here's where it gets weird. Mixed in with all this beautiful art, the divers kept finding chunks of corroded bronze that looked like junk. Green, crusty, shapeless lumps that nobody paid much attention to. They tossed these pieces into boxes and basically forgot about them for months. Then in May 1902, an archaeologist named Valerio Stais is going through these junk pieces when he notices something that makes his jaw drop. One of the corroded lumps has a gear sticking out of it. Not just any gear. A sophisticated, precisely cut gear that looks like it belongs in a fancy watch. Remember, this shipwreck was from around 50 BC. That's like finding a smartphone in George Washington's pocket. Gears this complex weren't supposed to exist until clockmakers in medieval Europe started making them over 1,000 years later. Stais knew he'd found something extraordinary, but nobody believed him. Other experts looked at his gear and basically patted him on the head like he was imagining things. Nice try, they said, but ancient people couldn't make stuff like that. For the next 50 years, this mysterious device sat in a museum basement, ignored by almost everyone. Occasionally, a brave scientist would take a look and whisper, "Hey, this thing is really weird," but nobody wanted to stick their neck out and say what everyone was thinking, that maybe, just maybe, the ancient Greeks were way smarter than we gave them credit for. What do you think? Could ancient people really build something that advanced, or is there another explanation? Drop your theories in the comments below. Fast forward to 1951. A British science historian named Derek de Solla Price stumbles across this forgotten device and becomes absolutely obsessed. While everyone else is saying, it's probably just some random gears, Price is like, hold up, let me actually study this thing. Price spends years examining every tiny piece of the mechanism. He's like a detective solving the world's oldest cold case. Using X-rays and magnifying glasses, he starts seeing details that blow his mind. This isn't just a random collection of gears. It's a machine with at least 30 bronze gears, all precisely calculated to work together. But here's the crazy part. When Price looks closer, he realizes the gears have tiny inscriptions all over them. Ancient Greek letters and numbers, carved so small you need a microscope to read them. It's like finding an instruction manual written in invisible ink. The more Price studies it, the more his brain starts melting. The gear ratios, that's how the gears work together, are incredibly specific. Not random numbers, but exact mathematical relationships that correspond to something very particular in astronomy. See, the ancient Greeks were absolutely obsessed with the sky. To them, the movements of the sun, moon, and planets weren't just pretty lights. They were like a cosmic clock that controlled everything from when to plant crops to when to hold religious festivals. But tracking all these celestial movements was incredibly complicated math that usually required teams of professional astronomers working with scrolls covered in calculations. Price realizes this bronze machine was doing all that math automatically. Turn a crank, and it would show you exactly where every planet would be on any given date. It could predict eclipses decades in advance. It was like having Google Sky built into a bronze calculator. In 1959, Price drops a bombshell research paper that basically says, "Hey everyone, the ancient Greeks built a computer." The scientific community loses its collective mind. Half the experts are like, "This changes everything we know about ancient technology." The other half are like, "This guy is totally making stuff up." The arguments get heated. Some scientists insist the device must be from much later than 50 BC, maybe medieval times, when clockwork was more common. Others suggest it might be from an advanced lost civilization. A few even whisper about aliens, though most serious researchers just roll their eyes at that idea. But Price keeps digging. He discovers that the mechanism doesn't just track planets. It has special dials for predicting eclipses and even shows the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games. This thing was like a Swiss Army knife of ancient astronomy, packed with more features than anyone thought possible. The real breakthrough comes when Price realizes the gear ratios match something very specific. The astronomical knowledge of Hipparchus, an ancient Greek mathematician who lived around 150 BC. Hipparchus was basically the Einstein of ancient astronomy, and somehow his incredibly advanced calculations had been turned into a physical machine. By the 1970s, Price has mapped out most of the mechanism's functions, but he's still missing huge pieces. The device was heavily corroded and fragmented, like trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle when half the pieces have been eaten by sea creatures and the other half are covered in 2,000-year-old ocean gunk. Still, Price's work proves one thing beyond doubt. This isn't some random artifact. This is sophisticated technology that requires advanced mathematical knowledge, precision engineering, and manufacturing techniques that historians didn't think existed in the ancient world. Have you ever built something with gears like with Lego Technic? Share your most complicated builds in the comments. I bet they're not as complex as what the Greeks were doing 2,000 years ago. Just when scientists thought they'd learned everything possible about the Antikythera Mechanism, technology came to the rescue in a big way. In the early 2000s, researchers got access to tools that would make Derek de Solla Price green with envy, high-resolution 3D X-ray scanners and imaging techniques so advanced they could read text hidden inside solid bronze. A team led by Mike Edmonds from Cardiff University essentially gave the mechanism a full-body CT scan, like what doctors use to look inside patients. But instead of looking for broken bones, they were hunting for hidden gears, secret compartments, and inscriptions that had been invisible for 2,000 years. What they found was absolutely mind-blowing. The mechanism wasn't just more complex than anyone had imagined. It was like finding out your old calculator was actually a smartphone in disguise. First, they discovered the device originally had at least 37 bronze gears, not just the handful that Price had identified. These gears were arranged in a sophisticated system that would make a Swiss watchmaker weep with joy. The precision was incredible. Some gears had over 200 teeth, each one hand-carved to exact specifications. But here's where it gets really crazy. Hidden inside the corroded bronze, the scanners revealed thousands of ancient Greek letters, an entire instruction manual that had been invisible for centuries. It was like finding the world's oldest user guide, complete with operating instructions and explanations of what each dial and pointer was supposed to do. The text revealed that this wasn't just an astronomy calculator. It was a complete prediction machine for the ancient world. One dial showed the 19-year Metonic cycle, which predicted when lunar and solar eclipses would happen. Another tracked the 4-year Olympic cycle. There were pointers for all 5 planets known to the ancients: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Even more impressive, the mechanism could predict the brightness of eclipses and show whether they'd be visible from different locations in Greece. This required understanding not just when eclipses happened, but the complex 3-dimensional geometry of how Earth, Moon, and Sun moved relative to each other. The researchers also discovered something that gave them chills. The mechanism showed the irregular motion of the Moon with incredible accuracy. See, the Moon doesn't move at a constant speed around Earth. Sometimes it goes faster, sometimes slower, following what's called an elliptical orbit. This wasn't understood by European astronomers until Johannes Kepler figured it out in the 1600s. Yet somehow, The ancient Greeks had not only understood this complex motion but had built it into a mechanical calculator. Tony Freeth, one of the lead researchers, put it perfectly when he said finding this level of sophistication was like discovering that the ancient Greeks had built a jet engine. It completely rewrote what historians thought was possible in the ancient world. The scanning also revealed that the mechanism had detailed star calendars showing when different constellations would rise and set throughout the year. For ancient Greeks, this wasn't just academic knowledge. It was essential for navigation, agriculture, and religious ceremonies. Perhaps most impressive of all, the device could be set to any date and would accurately show the positions of celestial bodies for that exact day. Want to know where Mars was on your birthday in 150 BC? Just turn the crank to the right position, and the mechanism would show you. The level of astronomical knowledge required to build this device was staggering. The Greeks had to understand not just the basic movements of planets, but their complex cycles, their varying speeds, and how all these motions interacted with each other. Then they had to translate all this mathematical knowledge into precisely calculated gear ratios and build it with Bronze Age tools. Modern attempts to recreate the mechanism have shown just how difficult this would have been. Even with computer-aided design and modern precision tools, building a working replica requires enormous skill and patience. Doing it with ancient hammers, files, and measuring tools borders on the impossible. What's your take on ancient technology? Do you think civilizations were more advanced than we give them credit for? Let me know in the comments what other ancient mysteries you'd like to see solved. The Antikythera Mechanism doesn't just change how we think about ancient Greek technology. It completely flips our understanding of what was possible in the ancient world. This discovery is like finding out that people in medieval times had smartphones, or that the Roman Empire had rockets. Think about what this device represents. Someone in ancient Greece had to have advanced mathematical knowledge, precision engineering skills, and manufacturing techniques that historians didn't think existed for another 1,500 years. This wasn't a one-person job either. Building something this complex would have required a whole team of specialists working together. But here's the really mind-bending question. If the Greeks could build something this sophisticated, what else were they capable of? The Antikythera Mechanism might not be a unique miracle. It might be just one example of advanced ancient technology that usually doesn't survive the centuries. Consider this. Bronze corrodes, wood rots, and most ancient materials completely disappear over time. The only reason we found the Antikythera Mechanism is because it happened to sink in exactly the right conditions to preserve it. How many other incredible devices crumbled to dust thousands of years ago? Ancient texts give us hints that there might have been other amazing machines. Greek and Roman writers mention automated theaters with moving figures, self-opening temple doors, and mechanical servants. For centuries, historians assumed these were just myths or exaggerations. Now we're not so sure. Hero of Alexandria, an ancient Greek inventor, wrote detailed instructions for building steam engines, programmable robots, and automatic machines. For years, scholars thought these were just theoretical exercises, ancient science fiction rather than real blueprints. But after seeing what the Greeks accomplished with the Antikythera Mechanism, maybe Hero's inventions weren't just imagination. The mechanism also reveals something fascinating about ancient trade and knowledge networks. The shipwreck where it was found was carrying luxury goods from all over the Mediterranean, statues from Greece, glassware from Syria, pottery from various islands. This suggests there were sophisticated trade routes connecting different cultures and allowing ideas to spread rapidly. Maybe the astronomical knowledge built into the mechanism came from Babylonian astronomers, who were incredibly skilled at tracking planetary movements. Maybe the gear technology came from craftsmen in Alexandria, where the famous library attracted the best minds of the ancient world. The device might represent a fusion of knowledge from across the entire Mediterranean region. This raises another intriguing possibility. What if advanced technology was more common in the ancient world than we realize? The Antikythera Mechanism might not be a bizarre one-off invention, but rather one surviving example of a whole tradition of sophisticated mechanical devices. Some researchers have suggested that the Roman Empire might have been on the verge of an industrial revolution before it collapsed. They had advanced metallurgy, complex engineering projects like aqueducts and massive buildings, and clearly understood mechanical principles. Maybe if history had gone slightly differently, Romans would have been building steam engines and mechanical calculators on a massive scale. The mechanism also challenges our assumptions about the Dark Ages. If the Greeks and Romans had this level of technological sophistication, what happened to it? Did this knowledge disappear when the Roman Empire fell, only to be slowly rediscovered centuries later by medieval inventors? Or maybe, And this is where it gets really interesting. This knowledge never completely disappeared. Maybe it survived in hidden traditions, in monastery libraries, or among craftsmen who passed secrets down through generations. The Renaissance might not have been about rediscovering lost knowledge, but about finally having the economic and social conditions to widely apply technology that had been quietly preserved. Looking at the Antikythera Mechanism also makes us wonder about other ancient civilizations. If the Greeks could build mechanical computers, what were the Chinese doing with their advanced metallurgy and mathematics? What about the Maya, with their incredibly precise astronomical observations? Or the engineers who built the massive stone structures in places like Peru and Egypt? Maybe our whole timeline of technological progress is wrong. Instead of a steady climb from primitive to advanced, human civilization might have had multiple peaks and valleys, with sophisticated knowledge being developed, lost, and redeveloped multiple times throughout history. The mechanism proves that ancient people weren't just primitive versions of modern humans. They were just as smart, creative, and capable of incredible achievements. They just happened to live in different times with different available materials and social structures. What do you think happened to ancient advanced technology? Was it lost forever? Or are there still secrets waiting to be rediscovered? Share your wildest theories in the comments. So there you have it, the Antikythera Mechanism, a 2,000-year-old computer that completely rewrites what we thought we knew about ancient civilizations. From a forgotten chunk of corroded bronze to one of the most important archaeological discoveries ever made, this device proves that our ancestors were capable of incredible things. But here's what really gets me excited. This is probably just the beginning. Every year, archaeologists are finding new evidence that ancient civilizations were more advanced than we ever imagined. From precision-engineered stone structures to sophisticated metallurgy, it's becoming clear that human ingenuity has been blowing minds for thousands of years. If you're fascinated by ancient mysteries like this, you're definitely going to want to stick around. I've got videos coming up about other mind-bending archaeological discoveries that will make you question everything you learned in history class. We're talking about ancient batteries, precision-drilled holes in granite, and construction techniques that modern engineers are still trying to figure out. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of these incredible stories. And if you enjoyed diving deep into the Antikythera Mechanism, check out my video about the Baghdad battery, another ancient technology that shouldn't exist according to conventional history. What ancient mystery would you like me to tackle next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below, and who knows, your idea might become my next video. Until next time, keep questioning, keep wondering, and remember that history is way more amazing than anyone ever taught us in school.